Well, Jason Jakstys is an Illini. Not a big surprise here. The 3-star in-state prospect out of Yorkville, 6'10". We got him now listed over 200 pounds. That's an improvement, but an evaluation Illinois made here. And Derek, just first of all, what does he bring to Illinois?
I think he's a nice get because of the skill set. When you look at 6'10", a guy that has the ability to shoot the three. I think that's the big thing as you look at shooting is such a priority for Broad Underwood and company with this class. And you have Perez and you have Amani, guys that have shown the mid-range game. And I think that's been a bright spot for Perez, is just having a little bit more offensive skill and a little bit more confidence in that mid-range shot. Amani showed that last year at Peach Jam and is trying to build on that as he's getting within workouts and everything. But a true stretch big man that can space the floor. We see that with Coleman Hawkins. And also the ability to do some things off the dribble. I mean, that's something that's going to have to continue to develop for him as he progresses. But he's flashed that, which is encouraging. So I also think he's a fluid athlete. You look, and I know that people, and I don't blame them. You think about Project Big, you think about long and lanky. Immediately, a lot of people are going to go to Brandon Lieb or even some of the other guys that, Matisse Vasile or some earlier Broad Underwood's tenure that didn't necessarily work out. But on Lieb in particular, he's just more athletic than Brandon, just in the way that he's able to move laterally, vertically. So I think that that's something that is actually a kind of a sneaky good strength for Jackson. He's not a crazy explosive athlete or anything like that, but in terms of laterally for defense, he's got long arms to block shots, kind of a help side defender and a guy that can protect the rim a little bit. And then also able to go to the rim and kind of get up there and explode a little bit. So all of that packaged together is really a long-term projection, which we're going to talk about, is that it's not someone they think is going to come in and impact them immediately. It's one of those kind of old school takes that you try to, and you have the ability to, down the line on your pecking order, the scholarship chart, to take a risk on somebody, make a long-term play. And they see that with Jakstys, and he's an in-state guy. His dad's from Champaign. So there's reasons that Jason will buy in long-term. And then I think he's shown enough on the court that Illinois wants to buy in long-term too.
Yeah, obviously the Brandon Lieb comp is just simply lazy to me. I watched them, and they're far different basketball players. They're tall and white. That they have in common, but they are different kind of basketball players. I think the upside play would be, can he be another Coleman Hawkins? Now that is very high of what his ceiling potentially is, but that kind of skill set is what he kind of brings. But he's a 3-star recruit and just got that 3-star rating, Derek. He had no other high major offers. Why did Illinois make him a priority and push here?
He'd been someone that was on the radar for a while. I know that Tim saw him in a workout. I think it was last fall, and was someone that he came back and said, hey, we need to pay attention to this guy in case he does continue to progress and show more. And does the body develop to also put him in a spot where it's reasonable to expect that he could one day, look the part of a Big Ten basketball player. So they brought him in for a visit during the season last year. Just can get him more familiar with the campus and the coaching staff. And then they watched him closely on the high school circuit there in June and the AAU circuit before that, both in the spring and then afterwards. It was really what he did in June. I thought he was really, really good. I got a chance to see him both weekends, both Riverside Brookfield and then also Romeoville. Illinois offered after the Riverside Brookfield showing. And it's just the fact that he was able to go out there and be able to do a bunch of things. I mean, he was all over the court. He was making jump shots. He was shot faking and going to the basket. He was doing some of the Coleman Hawkins, like push and transition off a rebound. And then he was blocking a bunch of shots. He played Phoenix Gill's team, and he had like 7 or 8 blocks. And so for somebody that has that length and that mobility to be a shot blocker, now he's also very rail thin. You can power through him. I think in one-on-one matchups in the posts, that's something that he can kind of be exploited with. He's almost more of an effective help defender coming over and blocking than versus like if he's against a legit big man and trying to hold his ground at this stage. But I think as you look at it from Illinois' perspective, they've got Coleman and Terrence going to the league after this year. They've got 3 grad transfers. They already have another scholarship spot currently open. So you're going to have a lot of roster turnover. That's not even talking about a potential transfer of guys that could be eligible to return. So there's just the ability to add a lot of pieces this offseason. Yes, with another year of a free COVID year type of guys and staying old, that's still something that Brad wants to do. But there was a chance to take a need, which is a stretch big man, and then kind of take a longer term play. And I think that all that combined made them very interested. And he showed them enough during July that they wanted to push for him.
Yeah, you wonder, is he going to be ready by the time Mrez is still here or in the NBA? All of those things. But you mentioned the fit there of with Hansberry, with Mrez Johnson. But what is the realistic growth pattern here, developmental pattern here for a guy like Jason Jakstys? Because it does feel like, Derek, he is bought in to kind of what Lieb was, and that, hey, this is going to take time. And I do think this kind of shows that there's still room for developmental prospects, right? When you have so much transfer overhaul, like you're probably not going to have, you need some guys towards the end of the bench that are willing to wait their turn, stick to the process. And Jakstys seems to be bought into that.
Yeah, I think for college coaches right now, it's a little refreshing. I think that, yes, it's easy to get bought in, and Brad and the staff definitely have gone the transfer route. But as you think about, I think some of the old school recruiting or just development process is something that coaches would love to have a little bit more of, and have some guys that would be willing to stick around for a few years and to go through the grind and the progression and see the growth. And I think fans want to see guys in the same uniform for 3-4 years. And yes, you may not see a whole lot of Jason Jakstys early on. I think that's something that is kind of going into your question, is that I think that I've heard enough that, they probably want to redshirt him, or at least seriously consider that year one. And yes, that's kind of an archaic way of going about your roster.
Pinky, the last one, right?
Yeah, I think that's right. Yes. So they're looking at that when you think about just the fact that he's just going to be really, really thin, and to give him a full year, just focus on your body with Fletch, and then try to see what that looks like after go into your redshirt freshman season. And are you ready to contribute in some kind of capacity at that point? I think it's really a 2-year down the road, 2 years in the program, maybe even 3, where he's really someone that's ready to. I mean, it's kind of what we saw a lot with Bo Ryan and maybe early part of Greg Gard, is just those developmental big men at Wisconsin that redshirt, and then maybe they start to show a little bit their first year, and then it's really that third year in the program, their second year playing. It's like, who's this dude? Yeah. And that's what they're hoping for with Jakstys.
The other guy that reminds me of is Iowa's had a little bit of that. Jack Nunge is a guy that I thought really developed well. Obviously transferred towards the end of his career, but that would be a heck of a kind of player down the line if you can get him too.
I know one thing to also add this, like, I think there is a narrative, and for good reason, that he fits with Mrez, and that's a good compliment. But also with what Mrez, the type of July he had, they're like, there's a chance that by the time Jakstys is ready, Mrez is gone. But if that's what happens, that's what happens. But still, the point holds, like, to have a stretch big man in addition to whatever you're going to have. If Amani's hopefully a long-term piece down there in that front court, not really a shot maker from outside of the paint or really outside of the mid-range at this point, that's a good way of balancing out some floor spacing and things like that.